Hey guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Vodkast. I'm your very disappointed host, Jason Oliveira. Why am I disappointed? Because last night I took my family to go see The Rise of Skywalker, the final, after 42 years, the final episode in the Skywalker saga. I want to preempt this by saying that Star Wars has been a huge part of my life, an integral part of my life for the last 42 years. From the very first memory of life when I saw that screen lighting up my family's face when I was 2 years old and watching those TIE fighters and X-Wings dogfighting it out on the screen, I have lived Star Wars. It has been in me just as much as anything else I do, whether it's playing guitar, writing music, doing these vlogs, whatever it is, Star Wars each and every year has been a part of my life. I need to start by saying there are going to be spoilers in this. There's no way I can talk about this movie without spoiling it. The scenes that I loved and hated about this movie, I want to talk about them. So if you haven't seen Episode 9, Rise of Skywalker, you might want to come back later. Okay? You're still here. Good. That means you've seen it, or you don't give a shit. My problem is I give too much of a shit. I give too much of a shit about Star Wars. I love Han, Luke, and Leia. I love those characters. I love Yoda. I love the stories that were told and the adventures they went on and the way they made me feel as a kid and growing up. Even the prequels, as much as I was not a huge fan of the prequels, it was more Star Wars for me to just consume, to take in. And I couldn't get enough of Star Wars because when I grew up, after Return of the Jedi, there was nothing for a very long stretch until George Lucas decided to re-release the original trilogy with the special editions, which you can have your opinions on. I didn't have a huge problem with them then. Now all I crave is the original cuts of those movies, and apparently we're never going to see them. But we're not here to talk about the first 8 movies, really. Well, at least not the first 6. We're here to talk about Episode 9. Episode 9 was the biggest piece of shit disappointment I have ever experienced in my entire life. I had so much hope for it. When it started out, at the beginning of the movie, Kylo Ren's killing those natives, and he's trying to seek out that Sith holocron thingy that's going to lead him to Palpatine, who now, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, is alive again. Okay, let's talk about that for a minute. Palpatine says he's been killed a number of times. He's died a number of times. Why the fuck are you still around? Why are you still in that shitty body? It doesn't make any sense anymore to me. If he's passing on his spirit to the person who kills him, I mean, he should have died at the end of episode 6. These movies have always confused me because it's 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 7, 8, 9. Like, it's really confusing. Why couldn't you just done them all yourself, Lucas? I want to talk to you about, first of all, about the things that disappointed me the most about this movie, and then at least leave you with a little bit of a better taste in your mouth. And I'll tell you about the things I really loved about this movie. The first thing I hated about this movie was the fact that they made Rey a Palpatine, and that is nothing more than fan service, but they pleased the wrong fans as far as I'm concerned. Anakin was the most powerful Jedi ever known. He did have the highest midichlorian count. Yeah, even higher than Yoda. Whatever the fuck that means. Here comes The Force Awakens. Here comes Rey. We're all assuming she's supposed to be the next best thing since sliced bread. You know, Anakin was supposed to bring balance to the Force. Luke, we thought, brought balance to the Force, but now all of a sudden Palpatine's back. And Rey is a Palpatine? Wouldn't you think that if she's supposed to be all-powerful and bringing back balance to the Force and the Jedi Order, that she would, I don't know, maybe be a Skywalker, have that Skywalker blood, be a descendant of Luke or some other Skywalker maybe we don't even know about yet? J.J. Abrams had an interesting idea. He was originally going to open up The Force Awakens with a hand floating through space holding a lightsaber. In Rian Johnson's The Last Jedi, when Rey is in the cave seeing the visions of herself, I began to think, well, wouldn't it make sense if someone, Maz Kanata possibly, finds his hand, finds the lightsaber. Somehow the hand falls into the property of Palpatine, who is now somehow still alive again, even though he's gotten thrown down a shaft. What if he got a hold of that hand? What if Rey had been a clone of Luke Skywalker? But because they didn't have the right, whatever you need to clone somebody, Rey was a byproduct of what was left of Luke's hand. Some people love this theory, some people hate this theory, but I think it would have made more sense. It would have made Rey a legitimate Skywalker, and I would have felt a lot better about this movie. Second, Palpatine is alive, which they don't explain at all. He says he's died numerous times. However, how are you coming back then? I know he talked about how if someone struck him down, his spirit would go into them and the Sith would live on through that person. However, how did he survive the fall? I see that he's completely just fucked up. His hands are all rotten and shit. His face looks all weird. His eyes looks like he might be blind. He needs some kind of robot contraption just to keep him moving. But it never explains how he's doing this. Like, sure, he said he made Snoke. We saw copies of Snoke sitting in those tubes, like all bent and deformed and twisted. I really thought all along that if they were going to bring Palpatine back, he was actually working through all of these individuals that he's had as apprentices through the years, and he's just moved into them. And when one died, he moved into the next one. And it kind of led to a theory that made me think that possibly Kylo Ren was actually, in this movie, going to be possessed by the Emperor's spirit, which once again I think would have been a much better way to go. Now I can sit and talk and tell you how great my ideas are, and you might hate them, you might love them. I'm not J.J. Abrams, I'm not George Lucas, I'm not any of the directors or writers, so I can't sit here and tell you I could write a better Star Wars movie. So then let me sit here and tell you I could absolutely write a better Star Wars movie. J.J. Abrams, I really love J.J. Abrams. I loved when he did Lost, and I even loved The Force Awakens. Yeah, sure, it was a little bit of a reboot of Star Wars, but it made sense. They were in the new hands. Disney had just purchased Lucasfilm for $4 billion. They're going to keep that franchise going, and they need to start it out with some strong characters. I'm going to briefly pause from my ranting to tell you about some of the things I did like. Anthony Daniels was great in this movie. It was great to see him out of the armor in a cameo appearance, and his humor was spot on, the timing was great, and I thought he did a fantastic job. Poe and Finn's interactions were awesome. I thought they had a great relationship on screen, and I really liked Rey and Poe's interactions as well, because we haven't get to see any of that through the first two movies. There wasn't much where they were in a scene together. So it was nice to see that growing and that bond between the three of them, so it made a little bit more sense at the end of the movie when they hug it out and everything's great. My next problem with the movie is the whole Kylo Ren, Ben Solo thing. First of all, I loved seeing Harrison Ford in the movies again. He's one of my favorite actors of all time. Han Solo, Indiana Jones is one of my favorite characters, or two of my favorite characters in any movies. However, everything from that lightsaber battle, which there were way too many unfocused lightsaber battles. I've always liked in the movies, I know I'm getting off course here, I apologize, but I've always loved that epic moment at the end of the movie, or Empire Strikes Back, Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader, at the end of Return of Jedi, even the Duel of Fates, even though there was a lot of lightsaber battling in the prequel trilogy, somehow I just don't think it was treated right in The Rise of Skywalker. It was too sporadic and it didn't make a lot of sense. After Rey stabs Kylo Ren, she then decides to heal him. What was this whole fight about? Why were they fighting if she was only going to kill him and then heal him? Like, I guess it was that she saw hope in him, but it just didn't make sense that within a 30-second gap, she decides to save him. If they had shown something to signify why she would do something like that, maybe she hears Leia's voice or something like that. But it just made no sense in the grand scheme of things. You just defeated your enemy. Move on. Go after Palpatine now. Or the Emperor, or whatever you want to call him. Also, Kylo Ren's turn to Ben didn't make a lot of sense to me either. The fact that, so he shows up, he's going to go help Rey, and all of a sudden the Knights of Ren are there. Somehow they know that he's not Kylo Ren anymore, and they have to stop him. I mean, I assume maybe Palpatine passed along that information to them, but none of that was ever spoken, and it just didn't make sense to me, and all of a sudden they're fighting, and they're kicking the shit out of Kylo Ren, which, isn't he supposed to be the super powerful Skywalker blood Force user? He's throwing guys around left and right, choking them, putting them up against the ceiling, dragging them around, it's no problem, but all of a sudden you got 6 guys in armor, and maybe they're too heavy, maybe the Force isn't that strong with this one. I did, however, like the Force power where they learned to kind of trade items when they were, when Rey was with Palpatine and he was fighting the Knights of Ren and he didn't have a lightsaber because he'd cast it into the water. Why you wouldn't just keep using that lightsaber anyway to defend yourself makes no sense. But I get it symbolically why he did it. So they exchanged the lightsaber, and now she's using Leia's lightsaber, which was really cool. But I do feel like they should have touched on that a little bit more in the first 2 movies, that Luke actually did go ahead and train Leia, but she decided to become more involved in politics and ended up being the general of the Resistance, which is a cool thing, but they only show you that little clip of Luke and Leia lightsaber battling in the forest, and they lift their hoods up, which Luke, I thought, looked amazing. However, Leia looked like CGI. I don't know if maybe they scanned Mark Hamill's face, or I can't imagine that they've never scanned, Carrie Fisher's face in the time that she was alive. We've seen her appear CGI before, and it looked way better. But now, it seemed out of place, it seemed weird, and the fact that, yes, this lightsaber, ooh, it's Leia's lightsaber, which we've never seen her with it. We've never seen the lightsaber before. We've never seen her wear it use it or anything. Like, it would have been nice to get some idea that, yes, Luke had trained her. Outside of the Mary Poppins scene in The Last Jedi, there's really no other time throughout all the movies that you realize that, yeah, she did get trained to become a Jedi. She just didn't follow that road. One of the final scenes of the movie, you get Rey and Ben, and they're going to go up against Palpatine. And Palpatine, once again, shows how powerful he is by just force choking them up in the air. They drop their lightsabers like there's no hope for them. So he throws Ben Solo down a shaft just like he got thrown down. We all know in that moment that he's not gone. He's going to be coming back out of there at some point. However, I wasn't expecting him to crawl his way out of there only to heal Rey and die. Like, he'd been redeemed. And I did enjoy the scene where he fades away and Leia fades away at the same time, which was, it was like she was waiting for him to go before she could go. And that was beautiful and touching. But there weren't enough of those emotional moments in the movie for me. See, for me, Star Wars is a very emotional and moving thing. There hasn't been a Star Wars movie that I haven't watched for the first time or 13th time that hasn't brought a tear to my eye at one scene or another. And there were very, very few in this movie. I felt like there was too much to cram in too little amount of time, and the focus, it just fell apart at the end of the movie. The first two acts, like I said, I think the setup was great, but it was the moment that Millennium Falcon crashed and the crew with Naomi, whatever her name is, came in and decided to join them. Like, I understand they were former stormtroopers who turned their backs on the First Order and they joined the Resistance. But it was too quick. It was just like, yeah, and then she's off with Finn for, like, I'm going with you then. Like, it's like, okay, great, okay, cool. I didn't feel it. I didn't believe it. The relationship wasn't there, just like the core three characters had tried to establish throughout this movie. And by far, the worst thing that I can remember about the movie last night, I've only seen it once. I am going to go back and watch it again just to see if maybe I'm wrong, is the scene where Rey and Palpatine are fighting, and he's hitting her with the lightning, and she grabs it with a saber, which, of course, that's what she's going to do. It's not like she's going to get hit and die. And then all of a sudden he says, I am all the Sith, and she puts the other saber out, and I am all the Jedi. I was just like, I think it was meant to give you that tingling sensation, like, ooh, Rocky's getting up. He's in the 10th round. Oh, he's going to knock out Jago. Oh, here he comes. I think that was the same feel that they were going for, but it was not accomplished whatsoever. It was stupid, and it was one of the worst lines. They could have come up with so many other better lines. Pulled from the history of Star Wars, there could have been a million other things. It seems like they were going for an Avengers moment where, I am inevitable, I am Iron Man type thing, and it was supposed to be profound and dramatic, and when she finally burns his face off and he dies, like, they could have said something along the lines of, I am power incarnate, or I am all powerful, and she could have said, and I am Skywalker, or something like that, and that would have been profound. It would have made sense for the title of the movie. It just would have been so much better than, I am all the Jedi. Yeah, proud of you, really. So, there is that scene at the beginning of the movie where she's trying to communicate with the spirits of those who passed on before her. And she's still trying to do it then when she's looking up at the sky and the battle is failing for the Resistance and all her friends are dying. And, at that moment, I really expected some kind of a Force Ghost interaction. At the end of Return of the Jedi, the original ending was supposed to have Force Ghosts show up to help Luke defeat the Emperor. Vader still would have turned, except they would have had the help of the Force Ghosts that have fallen before him, Obi-Wan or other ghosts that, I don't know, Jackie Robinson, Jabba the Hutt. My final verdict, I would have to say, start to finish, I can't score it higher than like a 6 right now. I don't think it was an amazing Star Wars movie. The first two acts felt like Star Wars to me. The third one felt like J.J. Abrams just kind of gave up, like he didn't know how to end it. But I think it was all there at his fingertips, and he just failed. And I love the man's work, and I think he's a great and talented director. However, I just don't think this is the best example of what he could have done with Star Wars. With that being said, I really look forward to seeing the future Star Wars and see what's to come after this. We can get away from the Skywalker whole mythology, and we can move on to something else. And as much as I look forward to seeing other Star Wars movies, I hope they don't drop the storyline of these three characters, and Lando, and Chewie, and R2, and 3PO, and I hope we get to see them again and find out in a few years what they're up to. These, the new heroes of the Star Wars universe. Anywho, thank you guys for dropping by. If you guys are loving watching these as much as I'm loving making them, please consider liking, commenting, subscribing, and sharing. Especially liking. From what I understand, liking is super important these days. Don't forget to make somebody smile tomorrow. Make yourself a better person tomorrow than you were today. Let's make the world spin a little bit happier together. Let's sing and dance in the sun and in the rain as one, my brothers and sisters. Live life to the fullest and love every moment of it, because you just never know when that last moment's going to come for you. However, never live in fear of that moment. Always live in love and never let your inner child die. Love the adventure you're living. Take care of yourselves, take care of one another, and take care of those around you who can't take care of themselves because they're the ones that need it the most. I'm Jason Oliveira. This is the Vodkast and my thoughts on Rise of Skywalker. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys a little bit further on down the road. Good night, guys.